Hello. So we're here to talk about e-commerce 3.0. Let me get some of these questions out. Let's start with a quick round of intros. I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Djalal, one of the founders of Ometria. We're a customer data and experience platform. We help brands create personalized customer experiences across all channels. Let's do it in a row.
Hi, I'm Alison Ehrmann. I am the former chief marketing officer of a premium direct-to-consumer dog food company called NomNomNow. I've worked in a variety of different industries at grocery and fresh direct, healthcare at 30 Madison, Barnes & Noble, other startups, and a long tenure in media and publishing. But really subscription-based and direct-to-consumer is my sweet spot.
Hi, I'm Tarnowski. I lead the group we call Connected Commerce at Kenvue. First of all, none of you have probably heard of Kenvue, but we were previously Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health. We spun out last year and IPO'd. And I lead, the group I lead, we've put together media, consumer experience, shopper marketing, and e-commerce into one organization.
I'm Ryan Montanez. I oversee marketing, merchandising, and e-commerce for M-Design, a home brand focused on organization and home decor. And I have a long background in retail, a lot of years at Macy's, also Carter's and Skip Hop in the baby area.
Hello, I'm Scott McCabe, head of e-commerce for True Religion, and I oversee the total e-commerce business, the site experience, all that good stuff, make sure the money comes in. And prior to that, I've been in the digital e-commerce space for the majority of my career. Started at Gap Inc., was over several brands over there doing their operational work, and Macy's, Tailored Brands, Columbia Sportswear, and I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary at True Religion.
Thank you. So let's dive right in. E-commerce 3.0, next-gen strategies could mean a lot of things to different people. Could we start by saying, or by me asking you, what it means for you and how that is in line or is aligned with your objectives for 2024? Let's do the other way, Scott. Let's start with you.
Okay, great. So, well, to me, like it's the evolution. It's the what's coming up. It's what's next, and it's not just about. Is it AI? Is it chat, GTP, whatever the acronyms are? It's also about how are we working together? And part of the evolution that we've had at True since I've been there that has helped drive our business is coming out of the pandemic and moving from a pretty much 100% remote team across the organization. My team was 100% remote. I had people Pacific Northwest all the way down to Florida and Maine, to understanding the dynamics of bringing and building a business into a growth mode required that we have people in the office. So I thought 3.0 was going to be like, we never go to the office, but that's not the case. But then it's also, again, it's what we do for a living. It's the understanding your consumer, using the data, and we don't chase. I'm not chasing technology, but I like to fast follow. And making sure that we're meeting customers' needs and growing the business.
For us at M-Design, we were sort of born as a marketplace brand. So channel strategy is really important, and we're really focusing on D2C right now. So looking at the differences of like why we're going to win in marketplace versus why we're going to win in D2C, personalization has been very important for us, and how we're going to do that and leverage the data like you're talking about. And then kind of differentiate those experiences. So why come to our site versus marketplace? And I think that there's a lot of focus on D2C, which is amazing because it creates that community and reason to shop. But it would be a miss for us not to be in all the locations like Target and Walmart and places through a 3P model, which allows us to offer the customer any sort of product that they want, right? If we want to sell 10 colors of trash cans because we think that's what the consumer wants, we're able to do that. So we're really focused on what the consumer wants, no matter what channel we're looking at.
Yeah, so Kenvue is a business that has a lot of iconic brands that are available in mass channels, right? So Neutrogena's, Aveeno's, Tylenols, Band-Aids, right? And so as a multi-channel business fundamentally. Our focus from a next generation e-commerce perspective is really, choose your buzzword of choice, but channelless commerce, frictionless commerce. I think Walmart's calling it adaptive commerce, right? But it's really about the collapse of distinct sales channels and thinking about how do we fully integrate our consumer experience, how do we integrate our demand funnels, and really make sure that we can deliver a seamless experience to consumers wherever and whenever they want to shop and drive to conversion across all those different touch points.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying. And to add something, an additional thought, I think that a lot of e-commerce has been able to grow through acquisition by paid digital marketing. And we all, us marketers in the room know how hard that has been the last couple of years, and there's no indication that's going to get any easier. So a lot of activities that I've been focused on the last couple of years is how do you generate how do you do more with the dollars that you have? So how do you increase the conversion rate? The traffic is there. How do you get more of them in the funnel? How do you collect email addresses to talk to them later, or with a new message or a new offering? And how do you increase your consumer lifetime value, which will help you then increase your acquisition costs, your allowable acquisition costs. At the same time, I think that e-commerce in general has become a little stale in a lot of ways. It's become really transactional. So how do we as marketers start infusing life in these magical moments? And where's the ta-da? When's the last time any of us have been on an e-commerce site and we're like, God, that was awesome. That was really cool or really special. And so how do we really know what our brand stands for and that differentiation, and how do we infuse it in our digital properties as well?
Maybe Alison, as a follow-up to that, and just to build on something you said there, I think one of the things that's really interesting in e-commerce right now is that a lot of the core experience pieces have really become commoditized,
Totally.
right? And so I think as you think about this 3.0 and what the next generation is, it's no longer sort of executing the fundamentals. It's about thinking about how do you stitch together these experiences, how do you create sort of this incremental and additive value to the consumer when the basics are all the same. Every site you go to does the same stuff. It all works really well, right? The magic isn't in being able to block and tackle. It's in thinking about how do you delight the consumer, how do you use the data that you have to meet them where they are, and how do you move them through the funnel wherever they may enter and wherever they may want to exit.
Because so many people don't enter on the homepage, and we spend so much time there. But the traffic goes so many different places, and they enter at different points. And that page, that product description page, has to work just as hard as the homepage in getting someone excited.
I would say the other part of that is we talked in another group yesterday about your loyal customers, and people are tired of the discounts. It's the basic functionality of the site, but it's also give me something that actually makes me feel you as a brand, that tells me you know who I am and you know what I'm all about. So it's those surprise and delight moments, or those experiential, taking your top customers to a destination near them, whatever that is. So that's part of what we're looking at, because we have a lot of data, and Kristen talked about this yesterday, understanding our consumer and how we are number 2 in brand affinity to Nike, and embracing these other brands that they shop at versus competing with them and saying, oh, it's Nike. It's like, no, they love Nike. Let's make sure they love Nike. Let's make a relationship there and do something with that, because that's where our customer is. And I think that's not what we've done in the past. Not like at a private brand, right? You're very much my brand. That's it.
Yeah. I think there are 2 key themes here. I mean, there's many, many things to pick on, but 2 key themes around data. But I think all of you touched upon sort of the omni-channel experience. And before you had isolated channels, the website, email, SMS, and now e-commerce 3.0 or retail 3.0 really is about removing these silos and creating that unified customer experience. And if we tie that back into data, of course, D2C, the whole promise of D2C was to control your data, control the customer experience. As a brand, if you start selling your product through other channels where you don't have as much control, is there a risk of not fully controlling that customer experience and therefore not sort of creating that loyalty or that brand that you want? What are your thoughts on that?
I can just start, that's something that we're constantly thinking about. We obviously have a robust business and marketplace, and I would say that whatever we can control, we try to. So if it's A+ pages on Amazon, if it's how our listing is showing up, but I think the differentiation between our D2C site and the marketplaces is really that we're trying to offer that experience and that 3.0 on our own site. So if you need to buy a plastic bin because you're shopping for something else and you happen to see our product and you put it in your basket, like definitely go for it. Doors open, we want you to shop M Design. But let's say you're like, I need to organize my pantry, new year, I need to get my life in order. I don't even know where to begin. All these bins look the same. It's off by 1 inch. What's going to fit? It's that type of customer service and also tools that we want to add to our site to be able to give that guest, whether it be, or customer, whether it be a quiz or additional added value, not necessarily through a discount, but why would you come to us versus just finding one product in a sea of products? So we're using that experience for our D2C site to be able to create a differentiated experience and then have that retention, but they might come across us someplace else.
Yeah, and having worked in a lot of different subscription businesses, there's only so much I could do. There's some people who are just allergic to subscriptions; they just don't want it. And being in retail, in addition to being a subscription or e-commerce business, gives people options. You're meeting them where they are. They might want to shop occasionally, or they want to try. Or they don't want the commitment of like canceling a subscription because it's anyone who's been in the business, like easy cancel, doesn't matter. Some people will just not do it. But if they can try it, then in store, they might then convert and we can they can organically, because we don't own the customer at that point, but they might organically come to us and then take a subscription, or vice versa. Like when someone cancels a subscription, you can say, hey, because it's too much money or the frequency wasn't right. You can go for like NomNom, check us out at PetSmart. You can still get it there. You can get it now at Chewy. So there's other options.
Yeah, from our perspective, I think it comes down to a couple different things, right? One, we are mass distributed brands, and our goal is just to reduce friction for the consumer so that, whenever they're looking to purchase our products, wherever they are, whatever they're doing at that point in time, that it's as easy as possible for them to do that. As you then think about how do you bring your experience to life at those places, I think the idea is really straightforward. Hey, we want to make sure that experience that they have with our brand is consistent, whether it's on a retailer site, whether it's on our site, whether it's on our social channels, whether it's in our media, whatever those cases are. That sounds really easy on paper. In a large organization, doing that at scale is really hard because generally we run those things in different places in the org, right? And different teams have different aspects of it. And so thinking about how you kind of bridge those divides and put together an ability to really deliver that experience consistency and seamlessness is really key, right? We talk about driving personalization. It's fueled by data, but our data lives in different pockets and different buckets. How do we stitch that together on the back end so that we can really connect the dots for consumers in a way that is additive, signals that we know them, meets them with what we know will be a compelling proposition to them, but also isn't creepy and doesn't cross that line, especially from a media standpoint. But I think the other side of it for us is thinking about what is the channel strategy and how do you understand what the shopper mission is in each of those different dynamics, right? If you think about a brand like Tylenol, the shopper mission for a parent for children's Tylenol when their kid is sick at 11 o'clock at night is going to drive a certain kind of trip, and they're going to either run into the store or they're going to get on last mile delivery. We know that we know what they're doing there, and we can tailor the experience to that shopper mission, that specific need. That's different than if I'm thinking, hey, I need to proactively stock up and build up my pantry. What do I need to think about for having in my medicine cabinet? And there I might need to have more educational focus and more orientation to helping people kind of navigate sort of managing that total medicine cabinet, which is a fundamentally different journey, requires a different experience, requires different content, right? And we have to think about those things. So that's how we try to think about it, is what's the role of each of these, depending on our brands, what's the shopper journey that they serve, how do we tailor them appropriately, but make sure that experience is consistent across all of those touch points.
The only thing I'll add is if anybody has the silver bullet, you can share it and then come up here and tell us. We use the data to also understand for wholesale partners, like where is our customer, where are they shopping, why do they go to Macy's for True Religion and why do they go to Bloomingdale's for True Religion? and making sure that each store has the right assortment based upon that customer profile, because we all know it, we're not getting that info. Like, I don't know, they're not telling us. So from a pure just like signage and how we show up on the tables, and Blue Boy and another one we did was an exclusive with us and Bloomingdale's, online in Bloomingdale's. So really hitting that customer and those accounts with the right data.
Got it. Thank you. Switching gears, going to data, or continuing the conversation specifically from data, what you mentioned, Scott. Over the last, I think, decade, we went through this wave, went through many waves, but one of them was this big data wave, right? I think everyone's objective was to get as much data as they could. And I recently read this Forrester report which highlighted the brands only use 20% of the data that they sit on. So we spent a whole bunch of money, resources collecting data, but now we're actually not using data. So going from strategic to more practical, what some of the things that you've done, or what some advice do you have to actually leverage the data that you currently hold to communicate to your customers in a more personalized way and to create those experiences that you just talked about?
One of the ways that I'm doing it with our third-party solution providers like our CDP, our ESP, our SMS providers, is buying into actually paying for the full service, white glove service, because our team is very lean. And to your point, like, you can have all this data, but we can't action a lot of it, right? So working with them in a strategic and also in an executional way that they can help us move the needle, say, these are the things that we're seeing, go do this, we'll set it up, we'll give you the reporting. So that's one thing we do to help us use as much as possible. And I think the other is, it's an evolution again within the organization to, adapt. You need more people to do anything with that data.
I think one of the places where it was most successful when I was at Fresh Direct, which is an online grocer for those of you who aren't familiar with it, but a new customer, or the average customer, checked out with about 35 or 40 items in the cart. And if you think about it, you go grocery shopping, you have a lot of different items, and that's 40 items out of, thousands. On top of that, so we had all that information. We had name and address because we're delivering. We had what channel of marketing you came in, and we had what discount code, and then we would overlay it with third-party data. And so it was two things that we could do with it from your very first order. We could build these models on your propensity to be a good customer. And we knew that if you over-indexed on high price point fresh food, you were likely to be a really good customer for Fresh Direct, because that's where their competitive advantage was. Their fish was better, their meats were better, their deli selection, all of that stuff was better than what you could probably get in your local grocery store. We were not price competitive on things like Bounty and Tide and those shelf-stable commodities that you could get at Costco. We heard from Costco or Target or some of the other partners. And so from there, we could build a model and say, and then also like what the discount was and a few other different things. If you came in off Groupon versus direct mail, there was also a very different loyalty factor there. So then create different marketing strategies, and who are the people at the top? Like they're going to get it right away, and so you just need to kind of nurture them a little bit, and they don't need a lot of nudging. The people at the bottom, no matter what you do, are probably never coming back, and we all know that no matter what businesses you're on, there's a lot of one and dones, but it was that big portion in the middle that required more nurturing, and maybe like, hey, here is for your next order, here's $10 off fish or meat. And so, encouraging them to buy from the categories that they're going to see the difference and then create loyalty. At the same time, with all that data, we could put them into different personas. And whether it was your feed the family persona or your joy of food, are you shopping? Are you creating New York Times New York Times food section recipes, and no one ramps are in season and Dungeness crab and all that other stuff? Or are you just trying to not order pizza again tonight for your family? Everyone's eating, but have very different relationships and needs with food. And using the data, then we could put you in these buckets and then merchandise and offer solutions in a very different way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think to your point, right, it turns out collecting data is the easy part, figuring out how to activate it in and not only activate it, but activate it in ways that matter in a meaningful way that drive a value return is much harder. And I think there's a couple key challenges that we face in our context in doing that. First is that how do you connect the dots between data that comes from a lot of different contexts, right? So it's one thing in your own experience where you have this closed loop data where you know all these touch points to think about what you could do to use that. When you think about how do I connect data on a consumer, the data that I get from retail partners like Target and Walmart, or our first party data, or media partnership data, and all these different pieces. How do you stitch all that together and figure out the use cases that make sense? I think the good news is AI provides an incredible opportunity to streamline that and to really open up many more of those use cases. And I think we're on the very front edge of an explosion in that. I think the counter to that, though, is the challenge is all this data we've been generating, a lot of it isn't useful for training AI, right? So if you think what the data we tend to collect is positive data, it's related to the times when things work. We don't usually save the data when somebody bounces off the site, right? And so I think one of the things that are going to be a key thing for us to figure out as we get in front is how do you get a rich enough data set that's not so narrow that you can train these AI models, because that's ultimately going to be the unlock for fully realizing the potential of this data in really interesting and compelling ways that'll drive meaningful value cases.
I was just going to also add that I think that we as marketers have been trained and know that we have to use data with media strategies. So like programmatic, behavioral, we have all these things that we use with media. And then when it comes to our site, we need to kind of use that same idea, obviously, with our site, and we look at it from personalization, whether it be like a recommendation pod or something, and we're like saying, this is what we think you like. But then I think in order to be able to push further, we have to kind of put it on its head and say, what is it that we're not thinking of? Like, why can't the full page look different? Or what is the data telling us so we can give them a more robust experience? Because I think that we had all this experience with media where it's like, we can't just push ads at them. We have to pull. We all got behind it. We all got behind social. And now the shopping experience online, someone said it before, again, we've been here, we've done that. The scariest thing to do is to change where they're shopping, because God forbid conversion goes down or the site breaks or something. It's like someone locked the door of the store and walked away. So I think that the idea of using data to create personalized experiences or test and learn is scary for us, because we don't want to ever limit someone from converting. But I think if we try small A/B tests and kind of get to where you need to be to try these bigger ones that are incremental to recommendation modules or whatnot, I think that's where we're going to really get to the point where we're kind of pushing the needle.
And with retail becoming harder, e-commerce becoming harder, everything becoming harder, right? I think there's been a big shift from crazy growth to now profitability, different unit economics, acquisition becoming very challenging, both from a cost and also a resource perspective. How do you balance that between acquisition, retention? I appreciate it also depends on the size of the brand, where you are at the stage of growth, but are there any particular metrics that you're looking at? Is there anything specific that you're looking into or doing differently this year round?
For me, I think that it depends. So I think that we're looking at both acquisition and retention. In my previous job, when I worked in baby, acquisition was very important. The idea of aging up a baby customer, of course, was very nice, but that new mom customer was more important. Similar in home, we do sell products that, you can cross-sell from bathroom to bedroom and all of that. But, when you're making a side table purchase, you're buying one, you're buying two, we really have to look at like where we're going to go with you at the next customer. So acquisition is still important. And we're also a smaller brand. So I feel like the size of our brand now and where we want to go, we still want to acquire and bring our brand, increase brand awareness. So it's a sort of a scapegoat answer, but it's like, it depends on the industry, it depends on the company and where they are. So we're kind of balancing both, but acquisition is still important to me.
I'll just share like a great brand moment I had in retail. And it was a small shop here in the city where I went to buy a new bra. And this is what they do. You go in there and someone greets you when you walk in. I am here, this is what I am looking for, this is what I need. And some, you go into a dressing room and some old lady is seeing you kind of naked and doing all this stuff, but she's an expert in what she does. And in 15 minutes, it had changed my life, and I spent probably 5 times more than I've ever spent on a product. I don't know the name of the bras I bought. I spent a ridiculous amount of money, but I am loyal to this shop now because there was an expertise, she treated, there was this human interaction. There was courtesy. She listened to me. All of this stuff, there was this magic. And I spent a lot more money. And I think to me, that's the power of what a good brand can do. It was that human connection and that expertise that said, no, it is now worth it for me to spend more money. And I feel like, how can we take something like that, and if we can harness that magic somehow into digital experiences, we'll be in a much better place. And I don't tend to be an expert at all about AI, and I'm as confused as a lot of you. But imagine you could on your phone talk into it and say, I'll use a different example. I do the same thing in restaurants. I am looking for a bottle of wine that is under $30. I like Sancerres. I like things that are crisp, that pair well with chicken. And that is the prompt you're giving it. And all of a sudden your search comes back with the recommendations. And so if you can have that more conversational relationship in e-com, I just think that could unlock a lot, because our search, we have a million filters, but then you still got to read all the pages and the descriptions. But how do we take that in-person, real human experience and then get it into digital? And I think that's the stuff that gets me really excited, and I'm curious to see where things go.
Yeah, I think a couple things, right? I think your points around the category and the brand and the products that you're selling is really key, right? There are high engagement brands and products and categories that you shop, that you build a long-term relationship with, that you're heavily invested on. Those are, there's a segment there that requires a really specific focus. A lot of products and a lot of brands, though, are much more lower consideration than we all would like to pretend they are, right? And I think in those contexts, we have to think differently about the acquisition and retention balance and the job to be done. And I think the shifts that we're seeing in the media ecosystem and how it's becoming much more expensive to run sort of direct response targeting in the way that we've done in the past also pushes us to think differently about, I think, maybe blending the boundaries a little bit in that area, right? It's less around, hey, how do I spearfish these people with media and get them into my funnel and convert them on the site and then retain them? It's more around, how do I build my awareness of my brands, increase that mental availability that people have around me, and then deliver a really excellent experience when they do come to my page. That's going to drive conversion. It's also going to build the retention and the loyalty. To your point, if you have a fundamentally excellent experience with a brand, you're going to build a relationship there. It's going to stay there. And I think that's really the key. It's less around, I think we're starting to move away from thinking about these things as being very rigidly defined, individually executed tactics, to being really parts of an integrated experience and ecosystem that all complement each other and build on each other to build kind of lasting high-value consumer relationships.
And if we have those relationships, our consumers will do the work for us and find other best customers. Your best customers know your next best customers. And we need to create those moments that people want to talk about, or the experiences.
Yeah, I'm excited where we are because we're in growth mode. And we have customers that have been with us for the 21 years we've been around, which in the denim industry may or may not be long, but for what we're doing, that's a long time to still have a very strong, loyal fan base for that long. So it depends on where we acquired them in the journey of our brand and them, because then we have the people that we acquired during the pandemic, and then the people who were only shopping when there was discount. So now I think it is more fluid, if you will, about how we're looking at all the different KPIs and the metrics, because part of what we're focused on and what we're seeing and doing is people that I acquire that are new to the brand, even if they know who we are but they've never purchased or they don't know us, they expect to pay a lot of money for anything they're going to buy from us because it's just the reputation. When they get to the site, it's like, oh, wow, you're actually not $500 anymore. I can get them for $200 or $199 or $99. That customer expects and will pay more. So how do we keep them in that part of the program and retention And how do we get more of them while taking care of the customer that we acquired during a different time in their life or ours that are really looking for the value? So now we're looking at conversion, for an example, at the channel level based upon new and repeat, and then where do we want to push the lever and what lever do we need to push to hit the numbers and to, again, increase our loyalty retention, but also keep getting the new customers.
Got it. So it's less about isolating it once again. It's more about fluidity. It's more about understanding the journey. It's more understanding key KPIs at each stage of the journey, then optimizing everything based on that.
I mean, it never really has, and it ever been, it's only just about the total site KPI, absolute conversion. But we didn't all have time, or it wasn't that complex. And now it is very complex.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, with your example with the shop, and then just thinking about like e-commerce 3.0, like one of the things that we recently did was we revamped our customer service team, and it was very intentional, and I really wanted to meet each of the customer service people, because if it is D2C and they can't go to a shop, that experience that they're receiving is equally important for retention, and once they come on the site that they're going to stay there. So whether it be like upgrading our chat experience or giving specific training to these customer service people, I feel like that's just as important in this e-commerce world that we want to create, and that we want to create this experience that's beyond what we're currently doing. And I think it's easy just to be like, this is what I've been doing for the past 20 years, and this is how it's going to be. But I think people do expect more. And now that we're really going into, you can shop anywhere, you can return stuff after 100 days of purchasing it. Like, there's so many benefits that people have from other places. Like, what is that special thing about knowing your customer through data, but also through customer service or chat or recommendations on a personal level through e-commerce?
Every single touch point the customer has with your brand is a way to gain or lose their loyalty. Every single one. So you're saying like customer service, or even the packaging, or the condition something arrives if you're doing e-commerce. All of it matters.
Lots of things covered. Scott, I know you have to jump on a plane.
have a flight.
You have a flight. So one quick final question, 30 seconds answer. Biggest takeaway, biggest advice, biggest single thing that brands or marketers or anyone in the retail space should be focusing on?
Oh, man. Forget that. I mean, my whole thing has always been customer first. Look at the customer. What's the customer doing? How are they changing? Make sure you're changing along with them. Use the data that you have. It's art, it's science, right? There's intuition. And I say the other one thing that I like to five is it's so organizational now. We're also, well, a lot of us are so matrixed. It's no longer about, I bought the product, you need to sell it, you need to market. It's all of us now.
Okay. Well, thank you, folks. That was excellent. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you.